So, good afternoon, students. We'll start our topic number 5 of Unit 4, which is common causes of time and cost overruns. So, the first one, common causes of time and cost overruns. So, cost overruns are the unfortunate norm in the construction industry, which is notorious for being late and over budget. Additionally, the construction industry's productivity has been pretty stagnant year over year, with almost 90% of construction workers classifying the industry as unproductive. To understand the causes of cost overruns and why they are so typical in the construction industry, we need to look at the construction process from start to finish and identify areas to help improve and optimize the process. So the first one of cost and time overrun is time management. How is the time managed in a construction project? Time management is often one of the biggest pitfalls of the construction project. So when workers are spending a significant portion of their day waiting to begin working, it slows down the entire project and ends up being extremely costly. According to the USG plus US Chamber of Commerce, almost 90% of construction workers classify the industry as being unproductive. It is common for construction workers to waste up to half of their day waiting even to begin their part in the project. With effective construction workforce management, this downtime could be drastically reduced, significantly increasing the productivity level of workers on the job site. Merely investing in a better time management system can have a massive payoff in the long run by increasing worker productivity, overall efficiency, and attitude towards the construction project. Next, labor shortages. Increasing material costs is one of the unfortunate causes of cost overruns in the construction industry that shows no sign of leveling out. With the more temperate weather and longer daylight hours of the summer season comes an increase in the demand for both materials and labor, driving up the price for both. So the construction industry is facing an increase in construction costs year after year, making profit margins slimmer than ever. So additionally, construction material costs are facing a year-round pricing increase, rising nearly 5% during the 2018 calendar year. Nearly 80% of respondents to a survey in August 2017 reports that firms are having difficulty filing hourly craft worker positions. With the shortage of labor and rising demand for materials, the construction industry faces an unavoidable increase in construction costs in 2020. However, firms can minimize the impact of this rising costs and maximize their profit margins by streamlining their construction process. Number 3, inaccurate project estimates. It's a common knowledge in the construction industry that the bidding process can get competitive. However, due to the nature of this process, sometimes estimates can under account for costs and not truly reflect the scope of the project. Therefore, critically analyzing project estimates is an essential part of setting accurate and realistic project goals. Number 4, project design errors. Design plans are the backbone of a construction project. Regardless of it, if there is the correct amount of time and resources allocated, poor project design's error almost certainly results in cost overruns. Construction management software helps to mitigate many errors in construction design. Tools like construction workflows that use data can be extremely beneficial for project managers to oversee correct project delivery along with reducing the risk of errors and delays as well. Construction software holds the keys to helping a construction project succeed. Correctly collecting and analyzing field data can help increase overall job site productivity by assisting managers in drawing conclusions and making necessary changes to the project. Number 5, administrative mistakes. Proper construction workforce management can help minimize wasteful spending and improve the likelihood of completing a project on time. Time consuming, labor intensive tasks such as accounting can be streamlined to help manage costs across the project. Number 6, ineffective on site management. Countless factors go into keeping a project on track during the construction process. Improving the communication on site between management and subordinates can help reduce costly mistakes or errors due to miscommunication. So, effective construction workforce management is crucial to keep a project on track, and a good construction project manager optimizes both job site operations and employs labor hours to complete the job more efficiently. In continuation, using project management software can be very helpful on site to help improve productivity and workflow. Project management software helps project managers to communicate essential information with workers, including optimal start times, the flow of tasks, or any changes to the scope of the project instantly across the entire job site. Number 7, unplanned cost. Cost management is an integral part of effective construction project management, and without successful cost management, a construction project will not be successful. Cost management entails budget creation and management using plans and estimates created in the planning phase. One of the most challenging aspects of the job is ensuring the project sticks to the approved budget, which can be accomplished through risk mitigation. Next, lack of communication. Having an open stream of communication between all workers on the job site is key to a project success, and collaboration helps them make this a reality. In construction, there are a numerous amount of different specialized subcontractors involved in achieving a final project. Collaboration from the planning phase to close out the project can have a significant impact on the overall efficiency and effectiveness of a project. Communication skills are a necessity in almost any job, but especially for a construction manager. Working with several different stakeholders at once requires the construction manager to have a clear, practical, and concise communication, one of the most essential construction management skills. So, this is your weekly assignment number 9. First question is you have to explain in details about the aesthetic factors and cultural factors that determine site analysis. Second one, what are the various governing factors for a site plan? And the third one is explaining the main influence of cost and plan. The last date of submission is given here, and the time for receiving the assignment is also given here. It's still 12:30 p.m. of 28/6. Since the CRs used to send part by part, so for their convenience, I am giving the time till 12:30 p.m. for every assignment. You can give your attendance in the chat box. Thank you.
These factors include site size, configuration, topography, geotechnical characteristics, ecological features including vegetation, wildlife habitats, water elements, and drainage and accessibility to property. When you're designing something on your site, you need to also understand not only about surrounding spaces and surrounding concerns, but also about the site, which how your land is being topographed, and what is the gradient percentage of your site, and where your actual water table is present, and where the water table is very high, so that you can locate your bore points, or points from which the water can be taken and be distributed from to the different parts of the site. So all this can be designed only if you have a thorough understanding and knowledge about the site. Building technology. Building configuration, materials, and system are rarely arbitrarily chosen. So usually there is a specific need for which you are going to choose the type of technology you are going to use. So, for example, if you need to monitor your building completely, we go in for CCTV cameras. So it is very straightforward approach, or it cannot be arbitrarily chosen, which means it cannot be randomly chosen solution. It has to address to a specific problem and are only partially based on aesthetic criteria. So when you're going for some building technology, it is mainly to address various factors. Aesthetic aspect is not the main concern for building technology. For example, floor to floor height requirement required to accommodate structural, mechanical, lighting, and ceiling system in a cost effective manner varies significantly from an apartment house to an office building to a research facility. Depending on what type of space it is going to be and who are the users, this the amount you spend on building technology also differs completely. So if it is for a residence, you might not need CCTV cameras or your various technology that you're going to put in your design as much as how much you might need for an office space or for a laboratory to function to function safely. Similarly, office fenestration may be based on one module and housing on other module. For example, if you are going to create an opening in an office space, usually we see same size of opening that is being repeated throughout the building. But the same cannot be adopted for a residence, because there it might question the whole privacy factor of the residents who are going to use. So those type of fenestration will be completely different. So what they're trying to tell is all this building technology depends on what type of use of the building is going to address to. In still other cases, these dimensions may be dictated largely by mechanical systems or even by the knowledge and preferences of the local construction industries. It might also depend upon mechanical system that's going to go inside your inside your project. Say, for example, if you're going to keep an air conditioned room, there might be windows which allow natural ventilation, but you don't need windows more than that to take in natural air from outside, because already the space is going to be completely air conditioned. So you need to know each aspect of each room, what is the function and what type of technology it has to go through, and then it also has to keep in consideration with the cost which is being derived at the initial program by the client. Next is sustainability. In its broadest scope, sustainability refers to the ability of a society, ecosystem, or any such ongoing system to continue functioning in the future without being forced to decline through exhaustion or overloading of the key resources on which that system depends. Sustainability, as we all know, it is a process of providing resources which can be used sufficient for the present, also keeping in mind for the need of the future. So you might not, there has to be a balance in usage of resources and usage of materials, so that we don't reduce or overdo what we need in the present. Also, we keep something left over for the future to use it, or we find some alternative solutions for the future to continue the whole process. For architecture, this means design that delivers building and communities with lower environmental impact while enhancing health, productivity, community, and quality of life. So when you're addressing sustainability for architecture, it means we are addressing to various issues for the end user. Say user health, we need to make sure the user health is properly maintained in the amount of air exchange that is being provided inside, or the amount of lighting that's going to come inside the building. All this affects the health of the user directly, and also the amount of dust and noise that's going to come inside, which is going to reduce the user's productivity. And it also need to address to not only to one user, but it also has to address to community, as well as to improve the overall quality of life. Cost, in most cases, there is a limit to fund available for construction. Once defined, this limit has a major influence on subsequent design decision, from building size and configuration to material selection and detailing. Once when we make a detailed estimate of the whole project, we need to work within the cost that is being estimated. So usually it cannot be arbitrarily chosen figure. It has to be designed, it has to be calculated at very initial stage, so that the client becomes prepared for the cost that we are going to that he's going to invest in the whole project. So that we as architects or designers, we also keep in mind, we work along with the cost factor that is being derived by the client. Although most budget are fixed, often by the amount of financing available, others may be flexible. So usually it depends on how much money the client has in hand, but there are some cases in which the client may go for a loan, in which cases there is much more flexible options of costing factor. The cost may increase to 10% or even reduce considerably compared to what we have calculated initially. So this is a flexible plan, or it keeps fluctuating depending upon the client's condition. For example, some owners are willing to increase initial budget to achieve overall life cycle cost saving. So which means, as architects, we might suggest the clients to use LED lamps, even though their initial investment cost is almost three times what the conventional light is. Overall, when you look at the life cycle or your electricity bills, you will regain the amount eventually in few years. So this has to be explained in detail to the client in order for him to invest the excess cost in the project. So next is schedule. The demand and constraints set by the project schedule may influence how specific issues are explored and considered. For example, an alternative requiring a time consuming zoning variance may be distracted in favor of one that can keep the project on schedule. We need to work, say for example, if you're starting construction of a residence and the client wants to finish it within 6 months, we need to prepare a construction management process in which how many days each process is going to take, so that when there is a process which is going to get prolonged, the masons can be made to involve in some other space of the same building or the same site, so that the masons are also occupied, whereas the site is showing constant progress throughout the time period, and we are also able to finish within the framework that is being estimated initially. So techniques of site analysis. Site analysis is the preliminary phase of architectural and urban design process dedicated to the study of climatic, geographical, historical, legal, and infrastructural context of the specific site. Site analysis is not just an architectural or graphical representation. It takes into a lot of technical aspects, and it takes into account climate context, geography, history, and as well as legal and infrastructural codes and regulation that is being used in the site. So to make a proper site planning, the result of this analytical process is a summary, usually a graphical sketch, which sets in relation the relevant environmental information with the morphology of the site in terms of parcel, topography, and built environment. So, as we analyze, we are able to come into much more clearer understanding of the site, which will already give us information about where the building can be ideally located and what type of drainage system can be provided and how services can come from outside to the inside and how uh, waste can be disposed from outside to inside. All this information you will get clearer once you make a proper site analysis. This result is then used as a starting point for the development and environmental related strategy during the design process. So once you understand about the whole site analysis, this will help you in creating environmental related strategy. For example, when we know how the wind is going to come through, it is possible for us to avoid the wind if it is necessary or use the wind beneficial to get rid of the hot temperature or hot air outside. This comes only after you make a proper site analysis. A number of graphical tools for site analysis have been developed to assist designer in this task. So there is a lot of number of graphical tools that is already present. So which means there are a lot of tools in which you can actually go and measure the climate of temperature, relative humidity, surface temperature of different places in your site. So you will get a clear understanding of your microclimate. Even though the overall climate for 1 year can be studied easily from other departments and government departments which is been observing through the overall year performance, you there might be slight change in actual site condition, so those can be studied using those type of tools. So it helps the architects to make much more accurate design site analysis. Example of traditional climate related site analysis tools are sundial, sun path diagram, radiation square, windrows, and wind square. So these are the different tools which is being used for site analysis, which shows how the sun is being moved around the site and where the shadows is cast during what time and during different season and how much wind is coming inside the site and how it is going to go out, and all this aspect are very important while making a site analysis. These conventional methods of site analysis are efficient in simple sites with irrelevant close obstruction where the analysis can be reduced to the parcel of the ground level or even exclusive to the center point. So these conventional methods of analysis different vary site to site. When you're having a site which has lot of constraints, so this constraint reduces the design opportunities or design advantages. So this whole site analysis for such type of site can be confined to the center point. So center point might have very less amount of obstructions. So that can be taken as the best case, and that point can be analyzed and it can be used for the entire site. More elaborate technique like volumetric site analysis can instead be used to study more intricate and obstructed site like those of high dense urban settings. When you have a small parcel of land in a very high dense development, the site analysis that you're going to do might not make much sense. So for that type of a site, what you can do is you can go for volumetric site analysis, which takes into account also the height of the site. So in the ground level, even though there's a lot of obstruction, you can go for volumetric site analysis, which will give you chances to create opportunities to make a better site planning and better understanding of the whole entire parcel of land. So process as described by Edward T. White, the site research process is divided up into three sections: research phase, analysis phase, and synthesis phase. These three phases are divided into 8 chronological steps in the design process. So first is research phase. The first step is defining the problem and its definition. This is part of the research phase. The site design and the site planning process begins with the initial problem to be solved. This is started by the client contracting a planner to work with the particular site. So the research phase includes for the first information that you gather about the site and what type of project and what type of function it's going to cater to. All this comes from the client and it is being synthesized along with the site, and then you need to arrive at finally what the client want in and what can be done with the site, and all this comes under research phase. So next is analysis phase. The next step involves programming the site as well as site and user analysis, which is focused on in-depth below. There are numerous site elements related to the analysis during this phase. This is part of the analysis phase in site planning. So when you're doing analysis, you need to take into account things like, see, when you look at this diagram, it shows zoning, noise, traffic, utility, on-site features, drainage, neighborhood pattern, location, contour, shape, views, boundaries, climate, setbacks. So all this are external information that goes into making a site analysis better. So this information has to be gathered beforehand so that the architect will have all the information that he needed, or it can even change his whole vision of the project. So now let's summarize what we have learned in this entire presentation as learning outcomes. Detailed discussion about various governing factors and elements of site planning and design. And then we studied about various process involved in site analysis, which is research phase, analysis phase, and synthesis phase. Various elements governing site analysis as explained by Ed White. Question to the students: what are the various governing factors for a site plan? Explain the main influence of cost and schedule. What is site analysis and explain its detailed process? What are the elements that influence site analysis? Explain the influence of climate and neighborhood context in site analysis. Thank you.
Welcome to our channel, Construction Claims. In this video, we are going to discuss figuring out the core causes of construction cost overrun. It is essential to take preventive measures that helps eliminating risks associated with construction projects. Due to unexpected internal and external factors affecting the construction projects, these are said to be unpredictable. These factors may lead to construction cost overrun. We have discussed some of the main causes of cost overrun in construction projects with their preventive measures. Wrong estimate. It is considered the most crucial factor in increasing the cost required to complete a construction project. Many inexperienced contractors don't have proper knowledge of the industry, and that is why they estimate the capital needed for a project less than the actual one. On the other hand, the project owners assign their project to such bidders who give less estimation considering it convenient, but they make a big mistake here. A faulty evaluation potentially causes cost overrun. In order to avoid the problem of estimating the wrong cost, one should follow the following points. The contractors or bidders should be realistic while offering project estimations. The owners should be wise to select experienced contracts for their projects. Take advice from construction industry consultants for decision making. Construction design errors. Sometimes contractors ignore the potential error in the design of the project, which ultimately leads to cost overrun in construction projects. It is because errors in design require to be corrected during the construction phase, and for this, many changes in the architecture might be made to eliminate defects. Generally, the design errors are made unintentionally while the project is in the planning or architectural design phase. But sometimes contractors make changes in the project without informing the project owners. It is critical damage to the construction projects. To eliminate the risk of construction claims due to the errors in construction design, consider the following points. Hire experienced architecture companies to meet your requirements fully. Contract with the trusted construction engineers and projects managers. Get help from industry experts to avoid future inconvenience. Unexpected delays. One of the most common causes of cost overrun in construction projects. Delay in the completion of construction projects might be owing to the negligence of contractors, mistakes done on the part of administrators, or from the project owner's side. All in all, delays are detrimental for capital projects because it causes cost overruns. There is no denying that postponement of any project is not good for contractors as well as the project owners, but the ultimate blow is to the investors in terms of cost increment. It is because prices increase over the time if the project remains suspended for a considerable time period. Delay is somewhat considered to be an uncontrollable factor in construction projects, but some preventive measures can be taken to minimize the risk of delays in construction, such as the project plan must incorporate inflation rate and expected an increase in demand and material costs. The risk of delays should be eliminated by considering external and internal impacting factors. Part of the experience, yet highly professional services of delay expert for better estimation of project postponement and its solutions. Thank you for watching the video. Please